Hi, everyone. So let's start with our session. So today's session is going to be on the story of Parabrahman Shantanu and also on the five koshas and the relationship between the two. Okay, so let's start with an invocation. Let's close our eyes, connect the tongue to the palate. Inhale slowly, exhale slowly. Let us pray to the Supreme God, to the Parabrahman, Divine Father, Divine Mother. We thank you for your priceless blessings, for divine light, divine love, divine guidance, divine love, mercy, inner healing, physical healing. Thank you for the inner strength to practice regularly. Thank you for your divine help and protection, for illumination, abundance, and prosperity. We thank you in full faith. Inhale slowly. So today we'll do this whole affirmation a little bit later. We'll do it in the middle of the session. And I think you'll understand why soon. Okay, so this is the story of Parabrahman Shantanu and the five koshas. So plunging right in, as usually is my style. So what I wanted to discuss here is that there is, I think most of us have heard of the word evolution, right? We keep hearing of the word evolution, that the planet is evolving, people are evolving, everything is evolving. Now, if there is evolution, then there should be the opposite of evolution, right? Because I think we may have realized that in the material world, there are always opposites, like light and dark, night and day, good and bad, positive, negative, yin and yang, etc., etc. So if there's evolution, which is the process of, evolving, then there also must be the opposite process, which is involution, right? So one of the fascinating things about this particular session is the fact that we're talking mostly about what we call involution. Okay, so starting with this, we're going to start with this chart, which I've taken the matter from the book God Talks with Arjuna by Paramhans Yogananda ji. So if you look at the chart here, which I do apologize, it's not very, very clear, but the idea is that there is Shantanu, who is the transcendental Parabrahman. Okay, now we've all heard of stories of Shantanu. He was the father of Bhishma, who took the vow of celibacy, right? Now, Shantanu was married. His first wife was Ganga, Devi Ganga, who had incarnated on the planet Earth. And she had several children, and she would throw all her children into the water. And before her marriage, she had told Shantanu that he cannot ask her any questions. And so when she was throwing the last child that was born of them, which was Bhishma, he basically stopped her. And she said, well, you've stopped me, you've asked a question, so now I'm going to go, and here's your child, and you can take care of it. Okay. And then, of course, he gets married later to Satyavati, and then Bhishma takes the great vow of celibacy. So just in this little context, I want to talk about a little bit. So Parabrahman and also Shantanu is also considered the Manu. Okay, so we've heard the word Manu a lot. Now, one thing that we need to understand is that who is a Manu? So a Manu again is an office. It is a title. Okay. So there's not one Manu. There are many, many Manus. And the Manu of a particular race is the person who provides the seed for the first child in that race, or for that race to propagate, there is a Manu. And Shantanu is the Manu of what is called um, uh, the Bharata race. Actually, he's not the Manu, but we'll get to that. So the Manu basically is the first person. Now, the Parabrahman, as we have explained, we have understood from the books by Master Chokok Sui, which is Achieving Oneness with the Higher Soul. He talks about the fact that there is a Jivatma, then there is a Param Atma, which is our higher soul, and then there is a Parabrahman. Okay, now this Parabrahman is our Parabrahman. Okay, the Parabrahman of an individual soul. So in his book, Master Chua talks about this, and he says that the universal logos or the universal Parabrahman is there for our universe. The Maxi Universal Logos or the Maxi Universal Parabrahman is for the universes. Finally, the Absolute absolute supreme God and the supreme creator, the causeless cause. So the point that we're trying to say here, in fact, it says here that there is a solar Parabrahman, there is a galactic Parabrahman, and of course there is a universal Parabrahman. Okay. Now, again, why are we talking about this? Because Shantanu is considered the Parabrahman. So I thought it was important for us to understand the meaning of the word Parabrahman. Now, once Shantanu has, once we understand Shantanu, then we understand that there is the process of what I was calling involution. Now, your question may be, what is involution? Involution is basically the process of divine energy that comes from a lot of places, I guess, not a place, but comes from many levels. And then it comes down into the universal level, and then the galactic level, and then the solar level, and then the planetary level. And then it comes down to each and every person, right? So that's the process of involution. Involution is the process of divine energy actually coming down into the earth. I think you'll understand soon why we are talking about this. But anyway, first, just stick with me for a minute. So now, if we just go further down, we realize that there are these two children that are born of Satyavati. So if you notice here, Satyavati, the second wife, and the first wife is Ganga. This is the first wife of Shantanu. And there are 7 children, which are called Kuthashta Chaitanya and the governing intelligences. And then there is Bhishma over here, who is also called the universal ego. So Bhishma actually is the first child of Shantanu and Ganga, who actually remains on the planet Earth. The other 7 children, who are often called psychological children, are basically drowned in the water. Now, this is very interesting because if we go with the teachings of Master Choka Sui, it is also represented, emotions are represented by liquids, right? So it's just an interesting comparison. So, okay, so the Kuthas Chaitanya has no body is basically the point I'm trying to make here. And perhaps the first one that has a body is Bhishma, and he is called the universal ego. Okay, now let's stop there. Let's move back to Satyavati. So Satyavati, basically over here, she is primordial nature as matter. So one of the things that Master Cho's books always talk about is the fact that what we know as matter is not pure matter. It is matter with energy. And what we know as energy is really not pure energy, because there is also an element. So for example, if you think of the kind of energies that are around us, there's electrical energy, right? There's heat energy, there's magnetic energy. Now, all these energies are related or connected with something physical, right? So for example, this light bulb, it's producing light energy, but there is a physical along with it. Apart from that, the light energy itself is also matter. So that's important to keep in mind. So energy is, it is not energy without matter. It is energy with matter. Why are we talking about this? We'll figure it out. Okay, now Satyavati had 3 psychological children. They are called Vyas, that is Ved Vyas, who is the writer of the Mahabharata. Then we have Chitrangad, who is divine primordial element. And there is Vichitravir, who is called the divine ego. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is that basically Shantanu, the Parabrahman, through his 2 wives, has these, let's say, 3 children, because Vedvyas actually was fathered by a rishi to Satyavati. So, one of the things that I find very interesting when I was young is when I used to read these stories, I was like, my God, it's like, the father is somebody, the mother is somebody, the kingdom is going to someone else. Why does this happen? And, while I was searching, what I think I sort of figured out is that these are stories which are, helping us to understand many difficult concepts, not difficult, but very many concepts that are so abstract that the gurus and the rishis have made them into stories, and through the process of stories they have passed these down to generations for a generation like ours and yours, so that we can understand what all this is about. Okay. So then Vichitravir, Chitrangad actually passes away without having even children. So just Vichitravir, but Vichitravir gets married. He gets married to Ambika and Ambalika, and Ambalika gives birth to Pandu, and Ambika gives birth to Dhritarashtra, who we know is the blind king Dhritarashtra. So from there, now we are further seeing. So basically what we're talking about is the descent of energy. Now, those of us who have done a little bit of reading of theosophy, we also understand that there are 7 planes. Okay, so if I look at this, what I see is basically the descent of energy through the various planes. So there's Shantanu, then there's Chitrangad, Vichitraveer, and Bhishma, which is the ego level. Then further down, we have Pandu and Dhritarashtra. Then further down, we have the 5 Pandavas and the 100 Kauravas, which, as you understand, is also a representation of us. And then going further down, we have the children of the Pandavas and then the grandchildren of the Pandavas. And of course, we at the end we have Parikshit, who is the grandson of Arjun, who then runs the Kuru dynasty till his son Jayameva takes over. Okay, so we're just going to step away from the diagram and we're going to understand why we're talking about this. So the 5 stages of expression. So basically, till the level where we reach a certain level, there is no material expression. The material expression comes much later. Okay, stay with me for a bit. So there are 5 stages of expression as consciousness involves itself into matter. Okay, so what we're talking about is consciousness involving itself in matter. And then later on, of course, there's a process of evolving where again, it goes back up. Okay. So anyway, so there is these 4 koshas that you may have heard about. There is the Anandamaya kosha. So this is basically the descent down. Okay. It's coming from the Anandamaya kosha, which is the bliss kosha, which is also called the causal body, going down into the Jnanamaya kosha, the Manomaya kosha, which is the emotional body, the Pranamaya kosha, which is what we work on in pranic healing, which is called the life sheath or the prana sheath, and then going down into the Annamaya kosha, which is gross matter. So what? Okay, so before we get into that, so these stages of expression basically are a way in which consciousness, which is, the Krishna consciousness, the Jesus consciousness, the Christ consciousness, the Buddhic consciousness are coming into matter. Okay. Now, when they do this, we basically have, a process. So when it comes in, we hear of, the Anandamaya kosha, which is the divine human being. Then we have Jnanamaya kosha, which is the intellectual sheath, which is for ordinary human beings, right? So sometimes we look at people and we're like, this person's really mental, right? They're basically operating more on the Jnanamaya kosha. Then we have the Manomaya kosha, which is the mind sheath. And sometimes we see people and we're like, oh, this person's so emotional. They're just emotional all the time. And we have the Pranamaya kosha, which is another kosha. And then we have the Annamaya kosha. Okay. So, okay. Now, this is something that is again given in the book by Paramhans Yogananda Ji, where he says this is by JBS Haldane. He says in the ultimate analysis, the universe can be nothing less than the progressive manifestation of God. So what he's saying is that God doesn't suddenly just descend. God, if we were to believe, let's do the soul affirmation in a bit. But before we do that, I just want to discuss the soul affirmation. So when we say that we are one with God, what are we talking about, right? So, and at some point, you've heard of us being like, okay, everyone is a part of God. And you're like, how is everyone a part of God? Okay. So how we are part of God is basically that the consciousness comes from the Parabrahman level all the way down to the mineral kingdom. Okay. Now, it also says that the universe seems to be calibrated for life's existence. This is an article that was in the Time magazine. So this is another very interesting thing where it says that the intriguing observation has that the universe seems to be calibrated for existence, that if gravity was a little off, the stars would burn out faster, leaving little time for life to evolve on the planets that are circling the stars. So the sun is a star. I think some of us are already aware of that, right? So the initial conditions of the Big Bang have been created, it's almost like a soup that has been created in order to enable life to evolve. Okay, so if that has been created for life to evolve, then obviously there's got to be a huge consciousness or an energy that is making all of this happen. Okay, so again, this is given on page 64 of God Talks with Arjuna. It's given over here. Okay, so the universes. So, in his book, The Existence of God by Master Choka Sri, he talks about the fact that there are Parabrahmans of the universes. Okay, it's capital S. So basically, I think what he's trying to tell us is that there's not just one universe, there are many, many universes. Okay. This is very fascinating to me. So the sense of touch in the physical world is has got more to do with our head than to do with our fingertips. Okay, let's understand that. So the 5 stages of consciousness again. So the lowest, well, I guess you could call it the lowest. The lowest is the Annamaya Kosha, which is the gross matter. Okay, so once consciousness has evolved all the way down, it is all the way down into gross matter. And gross matter basically is what we call sthula, okay, the matter. Then above that, we have the Pranamaya Kosha, which is the pranic sheath or the life sheath. Then we have the Manomaya Kosha, which is the mind sheath, right? Then we have the Jnanamaya Kosha. And then we have the Anandamaya Kosha, which is called the bliss sheath or the Atmic level. So, and then of course, beyond that, we have the Anupadaka and the Adi. Now, these are the 7 planes, and the 5 koshas are only existing at the lower levels of the plane. So let's just talk about this for a bit. You know, when we talk about Annamaya Kosha, then we're talking about minerals. So if we talk about minerals, minerals are objects which don't have any, they have very little consciousness, but they do have consciousness, right? Because if you look at a rock, it does respond to its environment. So if there's rain and there's wind and there's all kinds of things, then the rock will eventually weather. So it does respond to its environment, right? Now, and then there is the life sheath. And then if you look further, you will, let's go back to this one. So if you look further, you will also see that, sorry, I'm just trying to look for that. Yeah. So if you look at the Pranamaya Kosha, then if you'll see that plants also have a sense of consciousness, because if the plants are placed in an area where there is no sunlight, then they will try to grow towards that sunlight, which means they are responding to the outside environment. So how do they do that, right? Because they have a certain level of consciousness in them. Next comes the animal kingdom. Now the animal kingdom again is, if you see that the animal kingdom, they can move. So plants can't move. Inert matter, which is minerals, which is the lowest level, they can't move on their own. Plants can move a little bit on their own, but they can't completely move. So you won't see a tree walking from, Queen's Park to Baliganj. I mean, that's not going to happen. Okay. But the tree can move certain parts and it can grow towards certain parts. But an animal has the physical ability to move. But the animal does not have the ability to reprogram itself. So what I mean by that is that a human being can choose to, let's use a simple example. A human being can choose to eat non-veg or eat veg food. It's a choice. We can make that choice. We have the ability to think to that level. But an animal is pre-programmed. An animal is born to be eating grass or to be eating another animal and whatever, the chain of life. So they don't have as much of a well-developed, they don't have as much of a well-developed intellect or a discriminative sheath. They have emotions, definitely. And sometimes people even say that plants have emotions. So again, if you read some of the books on theosophy, it's very fascinating because it talks about how certain plants do have emotions and how plants also respond to good music. And if you play negative music around plants, they respond to that also. So basically what I'm trying to say is that when the matter is beginning to evolve into matter, so it's all coming in and then it's going up, okay? So when it goes up, we call it evolution. So so this is where we were. So it involves the, so consciousness comes into matter and then it goes back up, right? Let's go back to the first slide, this one. So Shantanu is the Parabrahman. The Parabrahman involves itself into matter. And as it keeps coming down and down and down and down, that's when it is involving. And then as it begins to go up, it is evolving. So what does that mean for us? So for us, it basically means that we have also gradually involved into matter. And now we are gradually evolving and we are going back into what is called the Parabrahman or in towards the higher levels of consciousness, right? Because as per this particular diagram, after we reach the Anandamaya kosha, which is the bliss sheath, which shown here is as the Atmic sheet. Beyond that, there is no physical body as we know it. Okay. I mean, there is no physical matter, sorry. We do have a emotional body. And so, if we get very disturbed, then our emotional body begins to get very disturbed. If we are mentally disturbed, then our mental body begins to get disturbed. Now, the Anandamaya kosha, or the bliss sheath, is what we also call sometimes the causal body. The causal body is the one that stores the information of our involution and our evolution back to Parabrahman. Okay. Now, again, these are all very, what should I say? These are deep topics which require a lot of study. Again, the idea is to share enough so that you get excited by it and that you start your own journey in exploring this further. Okay. So why are we doing all this discussion? The reason we're doing all this discussion is that we want to basically practice. We want to practice what is the first shloka of the Bhagavad Gita. So the first shloka says, Dhritarashtra uvacha, dharma kshetre, kurukshetre, samaveta yuyutsavaha, mamakam pandavascheva, kim kurvata, O Sanjaya. So let's do this, okay? So what I would like us to do is to be aware of the 5 Pandavas, which are our chakras, to be aware of 100 Kauravas that are around us, which are our vices to some extent. And let us just close our eyes and let us think not through our ego. Okay, we are not thinking through our ego. We are basically asking Sanjay. Sanjay is the, it's the discrimination. What did I do today? Let's close our eyes and we'll do the soul affirmation and then we'll do this exercise. Okay, so let's do the soul affirmation. I am that I am. I am not the body. I am not the emotions. I am not the thought. I am the soul. I am a spiritual being of divine intelligence, divine love, and divine power. I am one with my higher soul. I am that I am. I am one with the divine spark within me. I am a child of God. I am connected with God. I am one with God, and I am one with all. So just to share with you, this is my understanding, is that when we talk about the divine spark, we are already talking about, a very high level of evolution. We are literally talking about, when we talk about the higher soul, we're talking about the Paramatma. So, often we say, Paramatma may, help me. So when we are saying Paramatma, we are actually referring to the being who is the higher soul of ourselves. Okay, our own Paramatma. So the reason I'm kind of sharing this with us is that we need to be aware that everyone has a Paramatma. And that Paramatma, when they merge with the next level, which is called the divine spark or the monad, and the monad sits at the 7th level, at the Adi level. Sorry, at the at a high level over there. So in the inner reflection, what I would like us to do is to basically think, what did my koshas did today? What did my koshas do today? My emotional body, my mental body, what did it do today? Okay, so let's close our eyes and let's think of something that the kosha did today that perhaps could have been done differently, perhaps could have been done better. Okay, so let's close our eyes. Be aware of the fact that sometimes the mind is blind, is not able to see its mistakes. But Sanjay, divine introspection, can help us. So we step away. I am not the body, I am not the emotions, I'm not the thought. And we just look at ourselves and we try to be aware of what are the things that we did that were good, that were helpful to everyone around us, and things that were not so good. And if we find something that we'd like to change, then one of the purposes of doing this exercise, which is called inner reflection, is to help us to change our behavior, is to help us to change our kosha. So we can change our Manomaya kosha and our Gyanmaya kosha slowly and gradually by changing our Pranamaya kosha. Let's be aware. So mentally, let's erase something that we feel we probably should have not done. And let's replace it with what we should or could have done. Yeah, let's leave out the should. Let's just make it a I could have or I would have. Or I could have been nicer. I could have corrected that person more gently. I could have eaten healthier today. Something like that. And for some of us who sometimes struggle with this because we are like, I did everything I had to. That person was like that. There's no way that there's no way I want to change that. Blah 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 blah. So we start having all these inner thoughts. So to help us with that, we have these guidelines given by Master Chokkok Sui in his book, Ancient Science and Art of Pranic Healing. It's a topic called character building, where it helps us to understand how to practice. So the first virtue that's given here is called loving kindness and non-injury. So loving kindness basically means being polite, kind, and gentle, which is not something that we can we can do every day, that we make a mistake with, but that's okay, as long as the number of times that we are injurious to people is coming down, it's still okay. Okay, so let's think of something where we may have injuriously said something to somebody, and let's tell ourselves, let's erase that mistake and let's replace it with loving kindness. Let's think of how else we could have said or done what we did. Okay. Okay. So the next virtue is generosity and non-stealing. So we have to avoid stealing. Then there's honesty and non-lying. There's constancy of aim and effort and avoiding laziness. And there's moderation and avoiding excessiveness. So these are some ideas that you can take with you, and you can practice this every day. And what you may find is that, yes, and the other thing is to be gentle with ourselves, because the reason why we have to be gentle is because we have to be aware that what we are working on is all of this all these koshas. There are so many koshas in here, right? So we are gradually building up our koshas with our awareness of what should and should not be done. Okay, again, I use the word should. Okay, sorry, what I could and what what I can do better. So that's the whole idea of this. So just going back for one short second, why are we talking about this? Because when we read the stories of the Mahabharata or of the Bhagavad Gita, we need to put it into context. Okay, so one of the reasons why we're doing this is so that, this is my understanding, this is my interpretation of the Bhagavad Gita, is that I feel that it is basically a manual for inner reflection, in the sense that sometimes, uh, if you may have noticed that in the Mahabharata, certain people fight certain people. So to me, it is basically a study on how to overcome our limitations and how each limitation has its counterpart and how we can handle that counterpart and who has to handle it. From which chakra does it have to be handled? Why do I say that? Because if you look here, starting from Yudhishthir, Bhim, Arjun, and Nakul, Shahadev, these are the five Pandavas, these are the five chakras. And these are the five Pandavas who fight the entire Kaurav army and all the associated characters in the Kaurav army. And you may have noticed, for example, that Arjun fights Karn. Okay, that's one thing to keep in mind. Yudhishthir takes on a battle with Bhishma, his grand uncle. So there are all these so there's also, I think there's also a point where, Nakul fights Karn, but Karn, was it Nakul or Shahadev? I'm not sure, but Karn decides to let him go. That's what is said in the Mahabharata. But the point is, why would he? Right? And of course, there are all these emotional stories around it, but I would like us to step back, and I would like to look at each of these characters as a collection of emotions and thoughts. And what I would like us to basically understand is that when we read a story from the Mahabharata, or from any scripture, whether it's the Hindu scriptures or the Christian, or any other scriptures, just step back and look at the character, because these are characters that have been developed by the sages to communicate to us, to help us understand how to overcome, how to become a better person. Okay. The purpose of doing the Twin Hearts meditation is to basically expand our heart, to expand our crown. When we expand our crown, more divine energy comes into our system, and it makes it much easier for us to evolve, because all of us want to evolve. We have already been through the mineral kingdom. So the point is that I don't know if you've seen, but sometimes you look at somebody and you're like, this person looks like a bird, or you look at that person like, oh, this person behaves like a cow. You get that thought. At least I don't know about you, but I used to get that thought intuitively. It's like, this person behaves like this. Now, what I realized after reading some of these esoteric books is that perhaps that person, when they were evolving, they did actually, or when they were evolving, they did actually go through that particular animal kingdom. And everyone is not everything in the animal kingdom. We all have a path. So there are certain people who will evolve through there are at least 7 paths, is what I understand. So why should we be aware of this? It's like when we see somebody which has a certain nature, then rather than being judgmental, perhaps we can just step back and we can be like, maybe this person evolved out of that particular kingdom. And then we can use that information to understand them better, to operate in the world better. Of course, this is not for the purpose of calling people animals. That's not the purpose at all. So please, keep that in mind. The purpose is to understand and to observe, and to see if this information can help us become better people. Okay, so it's like observation of everything, and to validate. I've said a couple of things here, so unless we can validate them, we don't want us to just believe anything that anybody says. Okay, so let's raise our hands in blessing position. Keep our heart open, keep our hands open. Let's bless everyone practicing every religion. Let's bless everyone with a divine understanding of the scriptures that they follow. Let's bless ourselves with the ability to do inner reflection regularly, to be able to gradually cleanse out all the vices, all the 100 kauravas from our system, and make our chakras strong and powerful in that process, as our chakras fight our vices. Let's bless our entire body. Let's bless our chakras. Let's bless all the koshas, the physical body, our etheric body, our emotional body, and our mental body. Let us also be aware that we are the ones blessing these bodies. So we are not these bodies. Each of us is the soul. Let's be aware of the soul. Let's bless the entire planet Earth with divine, compassionate, purifying light. Let's invoke to the Buddha Kuan Yin for her divine, compassionate, purifying light to bless the planet Earth at the physical, etheric, emotional, and mental levels. May the earth be peaceful, calm, and loving. May everyone on the planet Earth have good thoughts, thoughts that are enabling, supportive, and kind. Let's bless the planet, the solar system, the galaxy, the universe, the universes. And then let's zoom back into our bodies. Let's bless our targets, our financial targets, health targets, emotional targets, relationship targets, and spiritual targets. Inhale slowly. Let's bless our projects, our homes, and our workplace. So one thing that I would like to add here is that, the reason we zoom in and out, at least in this particular session, is because we want to be aware that there is the entire cosmos out there. And then there's us, we are this little tiny part of the entire cosmos. But what we do makes a difference to the evolution of the cosmos, to the evolution of the earth. And that is why it is important for us to work on ourselves at whatever level we are working on, whether it's our emotions, our thoughts, whatever we are doing, we are working. Some of us are just very busy working, which is also fine. We're all evolving at different pace, at a different system. And I just feel that, when I zoom out into the universe, I see, I see how fantastic this whole process is. And then when I zoom back into my body, I kind of realize, to me, it's like, as I come in from the galaxy to the solar system, to the planet, to my country, to my city, to my body, I realize that ultimately we are all one. We are all connected, and we are all one. And for us to evolve at our individual level is what's going to help, not help, but it's what moves everything along. So I hope that wasn't too abstract, and I hope that was interesting at the least, so that you pick up some information on some book and you explore this further. Thank you everyone for joining. I hope you enjoyed the session, and we'll see you soon. Thank you so much. And if anybody has any questions, you can just post it on the chat group, and we will try to incorporate it into the program as we go along. Okay, thanks.